declare his praise. Who can stop the Lord around Our God is alive, the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles. Every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the hearts with your presence. And all across this room, we lift up our hands and surrender to you. This next song is about surrender. It's about giving everything we are to Him. Let's just lay it at His feet this morning.
Brian has an amazing testimony that he shared last night and tonight, or today, and so I want you to give a good Vancouver welcome to Brian Welch as he comes and ministers to us today.
Come on, brother.
Thank you.
So they told me that you got to sit over there because the camera angle's better or something. I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that means.
Hi.
It's just we're here.
You're so far.
Yeah, let's move in a little bit. It feels weird. So.
So why do you go hunting on the anniversary? Like, why not the day
we've moved
before?
on. We've already moved on from that.
But why not the day after? No, I'm just curious. I'm just curious.
Now, how long has it been since you've been married?
Long time. I was just curious. Maybe
Okay, man, I'm pierced in my heart. That was a really good question.
I was just
Jay,
curious.
8 years from now, I won't be gone on my anniversary. I'm planning a long time. It takes me a while to get this thing out of my system, so. We've had some amazing services, man. It's just been really good.
It's been amazing here. You guys are great, and I'm just honored to be here, you know. So you guys got a good house here.
Appreciate it, bro. Appreciate it very much. So let's talk about the band, Korn, and how you got started and your background and all that kind of stuff, and just kind of fill in people that haven't heard your testimony. We'll get there, obviously, but how did this whole thing start? I mean, you're really the guy. It's not like you got promoted. You're the garage band that made it big.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I really, really loved music, man. I remember my parents had the 8 tracks when I was a kid, and they bought. They love Bob Seger. They said they really love him. Yeah, so do I. And so, but they bought Queen, the Another One Bites the Dust album. My parents did. Isn't that funny? Or do you know who that is? But they bought that, so it was kind of hip and like cool back then. And so, and then one year in 1980, they bought me the Back in Black album, AC/DC, and it was once I heard Back in Black, I hit the side. It was all over. I would stare at the cover. I stared at the cover and just listened to the music And I actually wanted to play drums at first, and I heard a drum roll on the stereo on the 8-track. I was like, I was like, oh, I want to make that sound, and I was like, Dad, I want to play drums. He's like, you don't want to play drums. Think of how many pieces you got to carry. And I was like, oh. And he's like, what about like if you played one piece? Like, so all you'd have to carry is one, like a guitar or something. I was like, okay, I'll try that. And so I wanted electric because AC/DC, and my mom's like, you learn something, show me that you're dedicated, and then we could talk about electric. So I learned Mary Had a Little Lamb and all this stupid stuff that I needed to learn. Next thing you know, I'm like, come on. And so we got an electric, and I took a few lessons, but I would listen. Once I got the chords, like these, it's kind of like a cheat chord, it's like it's 2 notes. And once you learn that bar chord, it's like, you could play any song in rock music, And so I had an ear. I didn't have YouTube to figure out all the songs. I had an ear, and I just started learning these rock songs from Motley Crue, Ozzy Osbourne, Rat, AC/DC, Iron Maiden, all these bands. So it was just it was everything to me. Music was.
When I first got saved, I got rid of all my albums. I couldn't throw them away. I had to sell them because it was as much money as I spent. And now in my 50s, I had to go buy them all back. So I was kind of weird, but it's just
Yeah, we get. It's like it's funny because we get a little bit crazy, but it's cool because you're showing God like this doesn't own me anymore. And He's like, will you lay this down? And then when you lay stuff down, He's like, hey, you want it back? Except the drugs and the drinking.
That is exactly right. It's happened to you. It happened to me.
Yeah.
It probably happened to many of you. I think when we really serve God and we surrender, He generally requires that we lay something down.
This is the whole point of this becoming real. It's a relationship. He's like, okay, this stuff has ruled your life. Let's, just lay it down for a season, and then he works stuff out in your heart because you're in a pure environment, and then you're strong enough, and he gives stuff back to you. It's a real exciting walk with God, man.
So the band started. I mean, how did the band start? The guys.
So yeah, I met the bass player in junior high school. I remember we were in the same class, and I look over, and I had like Ozzy and Iron Maiden, all these like stickers on my books and everything. And I look over, and he's got Duran Duran written on his stuff, and I'm like, serious? And I was like, you got to get into metal, bro. And so a couple years later, he's a metalhead. Yeah, I was leading people to metal back then. Yeah, and I met the singer, Jonathan, in elementary school. I met the guitar player, James Schaefer, and we were freshmen. That's my guitar twin, man. We started out in the 90s and doing it today, still writing music together. So he chopped off his finger on I think a motorcycle accident, and he had to get the strength, and the doctor said pick up a guitar. And so he got an acoustic, and still to this day the meat's gone right here. We call it Land of the Lost, his finger. And so he has to play like weird, like he has to go like that. He can't really push down like that. So so I wanted a new Ibanez guitar, and he came over, and he was just playing acoustic then, and he saw me shredding. He's like, man, that's so awesome. I need to get electric. He goes, how much was yours? And I go, I'll sell it to you because I wanted the new Ibanez. So I jacked up the price so I can get the new Ibanez. And he didn't know. His dad paid it, and like 15 years later, when we were grown up, I told his dad, I jacked up the price.
You got to read the book. It's a great book. But this guy's an entrepreneur, and it started back then, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So
and then
buy low and sell high.
Exactly. You got to. So we started little bands, when we were teenagers, and just little garage bands. That's it. And around 17 years old, the bass player, who he played guitar first, and he was so bad, I was like, you need to play bass. There's less strings. You could figure it out. And it did. It worked. And so, but he wasn't getting the attention because the guitar players got the attention in the rock bands, back then. And so he got into the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And Flea, the bass player, was getting all the attention, because he's doing all that funk stuff. And so he learned funk, and they got into this funk rock band. And I'm a white boy. Like, I can't, all I can do is metal. And so I couldn't join their band with them. And what they did is they moved, when they turned 18, they moved to LA and tried to make it. And that was it. And I stayed behind. I had a girlfriend. She ended up dumping me. I got so depressed. I was with her 2 years, and I got actually suicidal because I didn't understand that kind of pain, I went and visited those guys in LA, and they saw I was heartbroken, and they said, hey, why don't you move down here with us, man? You don't need to stay in Bakersfield. Move to LA. And so that helped me get through that, but I became their roadie. I went from like this inspiring guy, like, hey man, that's awesome, you're a shredder, to this carrying amps for them. It was horrible, but I was just, I started drinking a lot because of the pain. It took like a year to get over that. And I just drank every day, and then I was a weekend drinker from 15 to 19, and then when that happened, I was an everyday drinker. And so that continued. I just drank every day, got some odd jobs and everything. I delivered furniture in Hollywood and Orange County. I delivered to Robert Downey Jr. one time, and he was sprung out back when he was in the news for all that. He opened the door, he's like, and I was like, whoa, this is cool, but he's so weird. You could tell he was up all night. And delivered for the singer for Chicago, delivered to his house. Yeah. Then I delivered pizza on a bike at night in Newport Beach.
Oh, I can hear the stories from this one already, man.
All the skaters and surfers, the cool kids, were like, hey, pizza man, because I was on a bike with a pizza on the back. I was, look at that kook. Look at that kook. And so, yeah, jobs like that. And then what happened was Alice in Chains came out. and this grunge movement came, and so the guys started getting more into the rock and like kind of putting the funk music to the side, and that's when they asked me to join. I joined the band. We had a different singer. We kicked him out after one show because he was just like, he's a mean guy, man. And then we found Jonathan Davis, and that's when we formed Korn. Wow. 93.
So how you got the logo? Tell us about the logo. How that came about.
We were sitting underneath Huntington Beach Pier, and we're just trying to think of a name. And our singer's like, "How about Korn?" There's a couple stories. We were thinking about Children of the Corn, that movie with the cornfields. He was just. We were like, "Korn? Why?" And he's like, "What if we spelled it like wrong, like a child's trying to spell corn? You know, K-O and backwards R and all." He might have came up with the backwards R later, but. We were just like, God, it's weird. And then we realized, like, no one would forget that name, you know? Even though it's corny. But no, you either love it or hate it, but you won't forget it. That's what we did. And so we got the logo, we plastered stickers, and that was it, you know? We just started playing around L.A. and Orange County.
So you started drinking heavily, that led to drugs. What was the downfall into that, or the progression into that?
The progression. I remember I tried weed when I was 8 years old. I actually tried to smoke a little. What do you call it? A roach that was in an ashtray from older brothers or a friend's older brother, and we didn't know what we were doing. So, and then I tried smoking it again when I was. About eighth grade, and I ended up just sitting in a chair like for hours, and I couldn't move, and so I didn't like it. I didn't like that, and so drugs just weren't my thing. Drinking was, and it was just beer too. I never drank hard alcohol because I wanted to be in control of the buzz, you know. And then, but when we formed Korn, there was this guy that was helping manage us, and he, you know, we would get. By that time, we were drinking pretty heavy, you know, and so when we get too drunk or whatever, he would have speed on him, and so a couple of us were, you know, we found out he had it, and you know, I had tried it back with some other old friends once or twice, and then so it took the like the spins away, you know. If you're really drunk, you're just kind of like, okay, I can maintain now, and so I didn't like it at first because I love me some Taco Bell, and you can't eat Taco Bell on speed. Once I figured that out, I was like, man, this stuff sucks. No. But it pulls you in. It's like it pulls you in, you know. And so I started doing it more, and yeah, some of the guys were doing it, and we were doing it, not telling each other. And then we found out that we were all doing it together, and then we started doing it together and writing songs on it and everything. And when you write songs on meth, you think you're Mozart. And then the next day you listen to it and you're like, what key is that in? It's really crazy. So, but once we got signed, because we got that logo Korn, we put stickers everywhere, all over LA, all over Orange County, anywhere, on stop signs, on buildings, and people were just, what's this Korn thing? It looks creepy, you know, and it's spelled wrong, and so people started to learn it was a band, and we would do anything. Like in LA, we wanted to pack the clubs so record companies would see like that we could draw a crowd. So we rented a school bus, got a keg of beer, put it on the back, and charged our friends like $3 to ride with us like 45 minutes up to LA. We would just unload the bus and people would pour in. We'd just go crazy, you know. And so we got a record deal. We got a record deal, and that's the funnest part of music, is creating. And it's so fun. And we recorded our record. We had such a blast, and there was drugs involved, but it was off and on, you know. And so we had a sober producer, so he was always like trying to feed us wheatgrass, and like he was a full-on vegetarian dude. And so it was just so ironic, you know, like health mixed with meth and craziness. But we got through it, and we did a great record. But the thing about music is that people don't know is that's when you hit the road, and that's the not glamorous part. You hit the road and you just play the same songs every day, and you know, some shows are better than others because the crowds, you know, get you into it. But yeah, that's all we did, is we hit the road, and we stopped doing meth when we hit the road because we were like, man, it's a dangerous drug. We don't want to ruin our career, and so we just drank a lot. And it's pretty crazy out on the road, you know. I just kind of didn't think it was going to be like that, you know. I just watched my friends. We had a lot of good laughs and everything, but we just kind of, it became more of like who's the coolest guy in the band type of thing, you know, and like the girls and who, it was like competition type of stuff. I mean, not with all of us, but we had some good times, you know, and yeah, it's just out of control lifestyle.
So you got out of control with drugs, but I mean, were you? We talked about this obviously in the other services, but you were medicating your pain, or you didn't like yourself. I think a lot of people go through that. They deal with self-image problems and different things, and success obviously didn't help that.
Yeah, I got bullied when I was a kid. Just how they call it for the white people, because I was talking to one of my brother friends, and he's like, I said I got pink belly, and he's like, what's a pink belly? And but that's when they hold you down, they smack your belly till it turns pink. And so yeah, I got that, and my friends, so-called friends, did that to me, and they called me big head or whatever, and pig nose, and all this stuff. So when I looked in the mirror, I didn't like what I saw, you know. Even when I was like before puberty, I remember looking in the mirror and I was like, man, I'm ugly, I'm fat, you know, or whatever I thought. And so I carried that with me, and I got rejected from girls and stuff in the beginning. I remember this girl, no, 4th grade, my first girl. She was like, they said something about going study. So I thought you go study like school with the girl you like. That's what I thought. So I was like, Keely, will you go study with me? And she was like, no. And I'm like, so that was my first rejection. Then it continued throughout high school until I was 17. That's when I got my first girlfriend, 16. And so, yeah, I didn't like myself, you know, and I carried that to, even with Korn, like all these fans coming up to me, there was something in my mind that thought if they really knew me or got real close to me, they wouldn't like me, and they would see that I'm ugly. They would see, you know, but when I'm drinking, I'm like the life of the, you know, I'm the life of the party, and I'm like, hey man, I make people laugh and everything. And so that's where I felt good, when I was drinking and just with the mask on, you know.
So how bad did it get? I mean, when you're in your life, where did it take you, and how bad did it get with the band and everything else?
It was always a thing where we would go crazy, but we would put the brakes on, because you can't just do it full throttle all the time. And so we would the beer was like drinking water, so it was like, beer, who cares, we just drink every day. But the drugs, we would do coke on the road or whatever. The bigger we got, the more coke would be around, because we get money, and then the coke dealers would just want to party with us. You know, I party with Korn or whatever, and they just break out the stuff, and fans, whatever. And it got pretty bad. Second record came out, we started getting bigger. We started getting played on MTV like late at night, and that was really cool. I remember me and my ex-wife, we lived in this shack, man. It was like underneath someone's house, a basement, and we had this little TV in the corner, you know, and we were just a beat up VW Bug, and I'm looking at myself, and our video comes on, and I'm like looking at my surroundings going, I'm on TV, man. Why don't I have a better house, a better car? But the next record came, the Follow the Leader record. That's when it exploded. Oh, thank you. Those Got the Life, or Freak on a Leash, and all that, the songs we're known for. MTV, it just exploded. They loved us, and they took us on, and it was all these bands that were just it was pop culture, you know, and it was like different types of music all thrown together. Just everybody was watching it every day, and it was bands like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, and then there'd be Eminem, Limp Bizkit, Korn, like everything mixed together, you know. And it was really fun, the music scene. But yeah, it just got really wild. And then I got together. It was an off and on relationship with me and my ex, and she got pregnant, and we got married in 1998, and a beautiful child was born. And wake up, wake up, you little no. And so yeah, so we were just like, we loved this kid with everything we had, and we were like, we can make it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna be good parents, you know. And then, so after, you know, I remember I hit the road, and I was sober a few months just when she was born, and I was just like, I had a new outlook in life, and so I was like, I'm never drinking again. Then I went on the road about 2 months after she was born with Rage Against the Machine, my favorite. I love them, and my bass player Fieldy, he's probably still mad about the Duran Duran thing. He's like, hey, let's go watch Rage. And I was like, let's go watch them. He goes, you gonna watch them sober? And I go, yeah, man. And then next thing you know, I popped a couple beers, and then it was just on again. And so yeah, I tried to be a good dad and a good husband, but I was just an addict, and I didn't like myself, and my ex didn't like herself, and we had anger issues and everything. And so when she was around 2 years old, our baby Janaea, we were still messing around with drugs a little bit, and we would fight so bad when coming down off of drugs, and we would do it and then like get away from it. No, we ain't touching that stuff, It'd be like a one night thing, but the week long after that is just like emotional breakdowns, because the drug is so intense, and so just fighting, physical fighting. Woodstock '99, we played that. It was just, yeah. It was like such a high moment, man. We flew over there with Ice Cube and like these rappers and Limp Bizkit, and it was just like, oh my gosh, Ice Cube's playing craps and I'm playing over there. And so we went and played and bet, like playing rolling the dice, and they took all our money, and it was just surreal, right? After the show, me and my wife got in the biggest fight. I ended up, because she was just physical all the time, and I would let her pummel on me, and that night I ended up hitting her, and her nose was all bloody, and it was just like the highest moment would always follow with the worst low. And so we didn't make it through, and she ended up leaving the family, and she was just a little bit worse than me as far as the drugs, but I wasn't much better, But I had this thing where I was functioning alcoholic and drug addict more. So I got full custody of Janaea through the courts, and Rebecca was, I threatened her so much, she was afraid that she would just lose anyway. So she was like, it was like fighting some battle that she couldn't win. So yeah, I got the custody, and right then I got sober again. I was like, I'm going to be a good dad. So I found a nanny, and my family helped a bit, and I was sober 4 months, and then 9/11 came, and all the stress in the world, and just being on the road sober, still feeling like when I was just ugly and just, not confident, and then when I was tried to be like the man and womanizing and all that on the road, I didn't like it. It felt empty and meaningless, and I just felt I was depression. It was just depression. I got a shrink in L.A. who was helping me, and a little bit after I was talking to him, his partner killed himself, another psychiatrist. So I'm just like, these doctors don't even have the answers, And I was just really, really lost. And so one thing led to another. I ended up moving back to Bakersfield with Janaea, and my parents were there, and it was just a thing where I was trying to figure everything out, but I ended up falling back into methamphetamines. I promised I wasn't going to do it again, but addiction's addiction. I fell back into it, and I started. Once I did it for 2 weekends in a row, I was hooked, and I fell into an addiction that I never ever knew that I would fall into, and it was a 2-year addiction. I went back on tour with Ozzy Osbourne, and I stayed in my bus that was cool, but I was in my bus the whole time. Ozzy! And it was just a miserable existence, and then the next year came around, year 2, and my final tour with Korn was with Linkin Park. God rest Chester's soul. And the singer just took his own life not too long ago, and we've known him for years, so that was hard. But we've been through it. The rock and roll life is wild, man, and just.
So you got to the place where now let's meet Jesus here. How you met Jesus? I mean,
that's the good part.
Yeah, that's a good part. But I mean, I one of the questions I was going to ask you, and you kind of answered it already in some of the services, but your impression of Christians wasn't that great, and then you met this one.
All I remember is going to. Just being after partying at the bars or whatever throughout the years, turning on the channel, flipping through the channel, then you get to that weird Christian channel, like 20 years ago, and that's all I knew. And then Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, like that's what I thought Christians were, and so I was like, ah. And so once I got hooked on the meth again, it was a crazy thing to where, I just lost myself, and part of me just wanted to die, you know, and I thought about taking my own life, and because I was like, I had millions of dollars, and I got sober. I was a drunk, I was a drug addict, and then I got sober. I tried everything, and I never liked the life really, and so I was gonna give up, but I just didn't have that will to actually go through with the act. So I was trying to do it slowly, you know. I was doing Xanax and speed every day, upper, downer. You know, I heard that sometimes a lot of people have died from uppers and downer mixing, you know. And so I was hoping, some nights I go to bed and just say, man, I hope I don't wake up. You know, I would take the Xanax after a lot of speed all day and just say, I hope I don't wake up. And because the child, you know, I was like, I didn't know what to do with her. Like, go for your dreams, sweetie. You know, if you reach your dreams, you'll be so fulfilled. I got everything I ever wanted. I'm miserable, and I want to die, you know. And so, a couple people back then at Bakersfield, they you know, I was a tweaker, but I was like a businessman. I was a smart tweaker, and these guys were like turned me on to real estate, and I started doing real estate with these guys while I'm like a tweaker. But they're Christians. They invited me to come to church, and I was like, you know what? I just got to go. You know, I got to try something. You know, I tried an outpatient rehab. It didn't work. I couldn't get off the speed. And so I went to church with them. And honestly, the people at the church were more sketchy than people at the corn concert. It was crazy. These guys, it was like a lot of Hispanics were there, and they're like, I had tattoos and their heads and necks everywhere. And I was just like, what? And I found out they're like recovering addicts and gang members, ex-gang members, everything. And so I tripped out, yeah. And I was like, so the whole thing of God didn't like make sense to me. I was just like, okay, I got to get sober here. These people are working on their lives. There's probably no meth in this church, so I'll probably just hang out here. And then the pastor started. He reminded me of you, just a really cool guy, and he wasn't holier than thou, and he just shared. He was like, I used to be an alcoholic. I beat on my wife. I hurt her so bad that her back was going to be permanently damaged, and I just dropped to my knees one night and I said, Jesus, if you heal my wife's back, I will give you my life. Because he was a Christian growing up, but he ran from it, right? So his wife gets healed and she forgives him. So he meant it. And so he gave Jesus his life. He started a little Bible study, and it turned into this church with 10,000 members, and I was sitting there. Yeah. And so it was so cool. And I'm listening to it going, is this real? Like, is this what I need? And so I raised my hand at the service. They said, you know, invite Christ in, be yourself. Don't try to clean yourself up. He'll do it. All you got to do is come to church, read the Bible, get to know your identity in God, and your whole life will change. So I started doing all that. And I would come to church on meth, and then I would try to stop it, and everything is all struggling, you know. I was struggling, but one day I was thumbing through the Bible, and it was like everything was speaking to me. Every time I saw it, it was just like it would jump out at me. But I was sitting in my office one day, and I was like, how do I really know this is real? Though, what if I'm getting brainwashed by these people? You know. Next thing you know, like I felt the presence of another realm, another dimension. A person walked in there. It must have been Christ. He walked in there, and I felt this love that I've never felt before. And it was like the afterlife opened up the meaning of true life. And you know, Moses in Exodus, it says that he said, God, show me your glory, and all God's goodness like passed before him. And I can relate to that because like it was in the invisible spiritual realm. I felt this goodness and this tangible love, you know. And so, and some of you guys might be feeling it right now, or you did during the service, you know. Maybe for the first time, it's real, man. It's real. People are afraid to believe in an invisible God, but there's like he's so awesome and real, you know. I was instantly addicted to that I felt that day, and I've been chasing that for 12 years.
That's amazing. Praise God. So everything's been smooth for 12 years, just virtually no problems. Life is amazing. Nothing, you know. I think people get the wrong impression about Christianity. They think that somehow if Jesus comes into your life that everything's just going to be smooth. But I believe we just now can cope with the junk that life throws us. So
yeah, God is a consuming fire, and so he wants to burn away the stuff, but he woos you. He's like, he leads you to lay your life down and to surrender and to, it's a beautiful death. You give yourself and you lay yourself down. But I had a good first 6 months. I was walking in bliss. I mean, God was like all over me. I was trying to tell everybody, oh my God, you don't even know what you can have. And they're just like, dude, you did one too many lines, bro. Calm down. And so I was just so gung-ho, and then I started praying wild prayers like, Lord, give me faith. And then all of a sudden things started flying away out of my life. It's like money. My money just flew away. And I'm like, where'd my money go? I made bad investments and everything, and that's how you learn faith. When you depend on money your whole life like I did, and I started seeing him provide like totally. And I was raising my daughter alone. And, I've been a single dad for just years, and so I had emotional problems, and I stopped taking, when I got saved, I stopped taking my medication, my mild depression, Celexa, and I was just like, God's healed me. And then it came back, and I was just like, God, take this from me. Why is this here? And he didn't take it away like that. And, I started taking my meds again, and that's really helped me, but my poor kid went through, meds are good, man, as long as I just don't do the narcotic ones, just the ones that are safe. But she saw a lot of things, emotional breakdowns that I had, holes in the wall, like yelling at God and all this stuff. And so she was there. I went through bankruptcy in 2011. I lost everything. I lost my house and some cars, and I got accused of fraud in federal court, and it was just like a lot of trials, man, and so I just kept walking through it, and the only thing that I just want God to be real in my life, and so, but He strengthened me through all that, and He's made me such a strong person that, that's how He builds us up. It's not easy, man, but it's a real existence walking with God. Yeah.
All right, so now I guess the controversial thing is you went back to Korn. You're out 8 or 10 years, 8 years? 8 years from
8 years, yeah.
And you went back, and I read your book, amazing experience. I think you're right where you need to be, but let's talk about that, how you got back with this, crazy group that, you walked away from. You're never going back. That's your dedication to the Lord. You're never going back. Now here you are back.
Yeah, I did say that. I said I'm never going back, and then God's like, you don't own yourself, so don't say never ever. But it's a thing where people think I went back for the money or something, but like they don't understand. I owned all these songs and I owned this catalog. I could have sold it and been fine, but the thing was, it's not that crazy. There's some crazy songs in the past, but it's mainly about pain and anger. And our singer, he was involved in church when he was a kid. He played in the worship band, but his dad got a little crazy with Christianity, and because he was listening to Motley Crue, they took all his albums and burned them in front of him and cast demons out of him and scared the kid, and he's 12, so he's got a deep wound there from that. And so a lot of these metal bands are just, they've been burned by religion, and so they do the opposite and try to put upside down crosses and all this. And it's like they're really angry at religion, and we're against religion too. It's the same. We're trying to present the truth, but it was just yeah.
So talk about that experience that you had when you got back with Korn. What God was working in your heart to go back.
My daughter, she started getting into all these rock bands like Evanescence, and Blink-182 was her favorite, and Chevelle and all these. So I brought her to a concert. It was a festival. I rode with my friends in POD, and they let us cruise with them. Yeah, and so Korn played that night, and they asked me to play a song with them. I played a song with them, and the singer broke down after the song. He hugged me. He had to take a couple minutes because he couldn't go on because he was just crying, and he just hugged me. And after the show, he said, "Man, if we never play again, thank you for giving me this night with just with my one of my best friends back, And so I was like, cool. I ended this chapter because when I left, it was kind of like we were fighting. I made him mad, and so I felt like I closed that chapter, and we ended up on a good note. And so I walked away from that show. There's just nothing. And then a couple weeks later, they asked me they're doing a new record and asked me if I wanted to do it. And I said no. And then I remember, I didn't say this earlier, but I had a 30-day thing in my house where I just stayed in my house and I felt God's presence stronger than ever, like every day for 30 days. And that was during all this. And I felt like he was just saying, explore this. And so I talked to the managers about things, things that I'd be cool with and things that I'm not cool with. And they just agreed to everything. And it's been really smooth. The only thing is like our singer's favorite word is like F-bomb, he's effing this, effing that, effing that. He's a sweet guy though, man. And it's like, if you could get past that, God's like, look at all those people that were just like you before you quit, It's a perfect place to be. It makes total sense to me now,
Well, and that's where I really feel, after reading your book and the experience you have with God, and it's kind of funny because we sometimes think that somehow all the people that go to Korn concert are going to show up here Sunday morning. That ain't going to happen. So I think you're right where you need to be, bro.
Yeah.
Really
So
do.
back in the day, we had these security guys, right? Big old dudes, and we'd send them out, man, go get all the girls, give them passes to bring them backstage after the show. And so now that I'm back, I get these passes, and we just say, Lord, who do you want to touch tonight? Send us to the right people that need it. And I'm telling you, miracles have happened. Like we got this this couple, they lost their son after his tonsils got taken out. He just it was strange, but he died from a malfunction. And so we prayed for them, and they got pregnant the next week, and they have a new baby. He's like a year old right now. And I was reading a text before we came up here. There was a guy. It was a treatment place, and he came to film an interview with me. One of the camera guys, he had written goodbye letters because he was done, and he was even filming for this treatment place. And so he got rocked by God, we just got a text saying, man, my whole life changed after that night. Another guy that was in Jersey. The same night I saw my friend talking to this guy, and I was like, I thought he was a security guard trying to shut us down. And I'm like, I started getting mad. And he's like, no, I'll tell you later. So afterwards, he told me that guy, he pulled out a suicide note and he showed him. He goes, this has got to be a sign. And we're like, yeah. And so, yeah, just miraculous things are happening. And sometimes I get resistance and people are like, one more story. This guy was like.
This is the last service. We got time, don't we, guys?
This one guy was like, he came and I started talking about Jesus, and he's like, oh, man, where's the strip club? I'm out of here, And so my friend was a faith healer, and he travels the world, and he has a gift of physical healing. And so we're like, who here has pain in their body? And this dude's like, man, I hurt my back 10 years ago. Why? At your concert. And so my faith friend, he's like, he got another fan. He goes, come here. I'm going to show you it's Jesus and not me. He goes, put your hands on him. And he goes, say in the name of Jesus. The guy repeated, in the name of Jesus, I command this back to be healed. The dude bent down and touched his toes for the first time in 10 years. He starts crying. Oh my effing God. Oh my effing. And he goes, this stuff's real? And I go, bro, I'm coming out here after a concert sweaty. I'm tired. And this is not popular, what I'm doing. Do you think I would be doing this if it wasn't real? This is the most realest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. And he gave his life to the Lord right then. And it was like, I love when that stuff happens. That doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, I'm like, woo!
I think you're in the right spot. Let's talk about now we've talked about Brian, let's talk about your life a second here. Let's talk about your life. You might be here today, you came, and, you might be just like Brian that came and somebody invited you. And, I think sometimes what we're looking for, I think in your mind, a lot of times what we think is that somehow you have to come to God in a perfect way. I still haven't even come close to that one yet. So, but I think that all God is looking for in your life is just to say, you might be one where you might be ready to just dive in, but you might just be to say, look, I don't really care for God. I've got hurt by the church, but I'm just going to open the door for God to speak to me. I'm going to open the door for something to happen here. And that's all you got to do with God. And I say this, look, I know my Heavenly Father so well that if you say to him, I'll try this, if he doesn't prove himself to you, and you sincerely say, I'll try this, and he doesn't prove himself to you, then he's not real. But I know he's real. If you really open your heart, just say, okay, I'll give this a try, then watch God flood your life. And if he doesn't, then he's not real. Go party hardy if he doesn't. But the Bible says, seek, and you shall find. We want to pray for people that, maybe that's you this morning. Ryan and I want to lay hands upon you and just, maybe it's just you, or maybe it's just you today. Just say, look, I'm going to do that thing. And I know it might be a little embarrassing, but we'll just have everybody stand up, and then you can just come right to the front of the stage here and just face us, and let us just lay our hands upon you just for a second and pray for you that God's going to do something amazing in your life. Here's one right here. Hi. Somebody else? Come on.
Yeah, come on up, you guys. I flew a lot of hours to come here. Just come on up. I want to see you. I want to pray for you.
Let's everybody stand up just for a second. And then just make your way up. You can kneel down. You don't have to kneel down, but you can kneel down if you want.
If your heart is open, man, I'm telling you, God will flood in. He'll show himself for real. And it may be different, but you just got to step into the unknown, and he will meet you there. And I'm telling you, man, at the end of your life, you'll be so glad you did this. You know, and don't let any wounds. This is something new that can happen to you right now. Just be bold, man. Don't care what anybody thinks. No, what anybody thinks next to you. Just come on up.